Welcome to the Cambridge Tech Podcast, talking all things technology from the heart of the UK's tech capital. Here are your hosts, Faye Holland and James Parton.
Hi, I'm James.
And I'm Faye. So James, you were still getting back into it the week before last. How was last week?
Yeah, I think I'm getting there. I think the week had a nice pace to it, actually. So like nothing super crazy. And I've actually noticed quite a few people have taken that extra week off. So coming back, yesterday. So yeah, got close to inbox zero, which is a rarity.
What?
I know. Well, I mean, that's strictly not true, as in unread messages. But there's obviously stuff still in my inbox. But I'm doing pretty well compared to normal. And progressed a few new ideas, had some great conversations, and lined up a couple of future guests for the pod. So yeah, a good first full week back. How about you?
Yeah, it was good. I was hidden away a little bit again last week. I did lots and lots of one-on-one outreach, which was good. Most of it obviously online over email. I did manage to grab some FaceTime though. So I caught up with people like Anne Bailey, Paul Hughes, Mike Schlom, Toby Young, to name a few. And do you know what? It was just a really lovely week. Everyone's come back all energized, and it was just a lovely reminder of what a great set of people we've got in Cambridge. So,
Great pub for Cambridge.
Oh, I know. But I know it sounds a little bit gushy, but actually this stuff's really important. That you build relationships and you have good relationships. So I never ever take that for granted. A bit like you, I hope we're both in good books, aren't we? It's like we're reporting to each other here. I did lots of poddy invites as well. I kind of felt that I'd not done a few for a while, so I went out like a little bit of a psycho, I think. So yeah, we should have a pretty full slate, I think, for 2026 as well, which is great. So yeah, big ticks for both of us and lovely gold stars. Yeah, 21 to Watch deadline closed last week, so the team are going to be very busy getting everything ready for March. And then I said last week I was going to the Cambridge United Foundation event, and that was a bit, maybe I'm going a bit lovey again here, but what a great way to start the year. We constantly talk about the great opportunity that we've got for Cambridge, but this event was a reminder that we can do more, and we can definitely do more if we are united for Cambridge, which was their initiative that they launched last Thursday about supporting across the community and addressing inequality. And that was great, and there were lots of people out at that event to support it as well. So yeah, it was a really good week last week. I think this week is a little bit more back to normal as well, stop doing the housekeeping stuff and tidying emails and those kinds of things. So it's a little bit back to it. And I think pretty much all of our listeners will be in that same position as well, won't they?
Yeah, they will. Yeah, that's great. So should we get on to the news?
Yep, just a couple of pieces of news and a couple of updates. So hot off the press, we've got another new startup just in time for this year's 21 to Watch, which has come from Lubna Buafa, who built and sold Okra AI in 2023. The startup follows the rising global trend for misinformation, which aims to combat this problem. The company is called FactTrace. It's based in the Maxwell Centre at the University of Cambridge. And Lubna said, FactTrace is designed for any organisation where facts matter. As AI rewrites information at scale, organisations need a way to verify that what's published or generated still matches their own trusted facts. FactTrace provides that missing layer, making facts traceable infrastructure rather than something that relies on manual checks or interpretation. So it seems pretty timely and interesting, doesn't it?
That is interesting. In fact, that actually makes me think back to the interview that we did with Herman Hauser. Do you remember? Yeah, real-time AI fact-checking. So that's interesting. So we should definitely get them on and talk about that. Okay, great. So our next story is from fabless semiconductor company Cambridge GaN Devices, who have appointed a new CEO to target key growth in key markets. The new CEO is Fabio Necco, who replaces CEO and co-founder Giorgia Longobardi. Fabio comes to CGD from onsemi, a US-based semiconductor company specialized in delivering industry-leading intelligent power and intelligent sensing solutions, where he was vice president and division general manager. Georgia remains at the company as CMO and will continue to act as a director and retains her seat on the advisory board of the International Semiconductor Industry Group.
Brilliant. So welcome to Fabio. And I have to say, huge congrats to Georgia. She has been an amazing leader of that organisation and a great role model for many. So exciting times for CGD. So a couple of updates for you, dates for your diaries. The first one is Form the Future's next conference, Young People and Work in the Age of AI, is on Thursday, the 29th of January. The event will unpack how AI is transforming early careers, recruitment and education, and how we can best support young people, schools and employers to navigate this fast-changing landscape. It will be held at Hingston Hall in Cambridge, and you can find more details and links to buy your tickets at formthefuture.org.uk.
And also just a gentle reminder that the Cambridge Independent SciTech Awards deadline is fast approaching at the end of January. So if you want to get that recognition from the awards, head over to cambridgeindependent.co.uk to find out more. Great. So let's move on to our first company episode of the year. And today we're hearing from a very exciting company based in Norwich who are enabling the development of greener medicines. Welcome to Dr. Dave Sheppard and Dr. Phil Spence from HotHouse Therapeutics. Thanks for taking the time to speak to us today. We always like to start by getting to know you a little bit better, your kind of personal journey, I guess your childhood path through education and your inspiration. Did you always want to be entrepreneurs? So why don't we start there?
I always wanted to be a scientist, largely because my dad had multiple sclerosis. So working in science to help discover new drugs and help bring new therapies was always something I was definitely interested in. And then my A-level chemistry teacher was amazing. And she made me kind of love chemistry and fall in love with it. So I applied to university, went to university, studied chemistry, and then realised you probably need a PhD to be a researcher. So I went and did my PhD, and then through that saw the kind of incoming wave of AI and how you can apply that to chemistry. So about halfway through my PhD, decided to start doing more of that, taught myself how to code and how to train AI models and how to do all of this incoming stuff that looked really cool and other people were doing. And then I got a job with Anne Osborne. We founded the company together, and it was 4 years after the end of my PhD that we finally spanned the company out, and here I am.
Yeah, me, it's a similar sort of story, really. I guess it stemmed from high school. I had a physics teacher called Mrs. Milligan, I think she was called, in my second year, so she had an impact on me because I still remember her name from being 14. And she said to my parents and me at a parents' evening, you should be a scientist, you should be working in the pharmaceutical industry. And I quite liked the sound of that. So I decided to go down that path. So studied chemistry, undergraduate, went to St Andrews, then did my PhD in computational chemistry, or sort of quantum chemistry, at the University of Manchester. Then that led on to several roles in the biotech space, a couple of rounds of redundancy later. Ended up at Biofocus, it's now Charles River in Cambridge, and worked there for 8 years. And then at that point decided that I would start my own consultancy company. So did that. And that was 2015. So it's over 10 years now. And I worked for a couple of companies, Benevolent AI in the very early days, and also a company called Anima Biotech, sort of Israeli company, first gen RNA therapeutics company out of Israel. And that took all my time. Then in 2019, had an idea for a company, raised some initial capital, and that company's called Intact Bio now. So founded that in 2019. Myself and a colleague worked in that company for over the COVID years, but we outsourced everything. So it actually worked out fine. And ended up delivering a $75 million Series A, flipped the company to a US entity. So I stayed with the company for about a year after that, then stepped aside as operations grew in the US. And then I pivoted back to consultancy for a while, and then HotHouse Therapeutics was placed on my lap. Would I be interested in getting involved? And it sounded really interesting, sounded like something I'd never done before. No experience of really plants and that sort of side of things, but still delivering chemistry with a chemical output. So that's what fascinated me about it.
Oh, it's super interesting again that you've had that
impact from such an early part of your career. You know, the organisations we work with, like the Form the Futures and the Cambridge Science Centres, will absolutely love that because it shows how important those early interactions are. And I know, Dave, you mentioned Dr. Anne Osborne. We'll come back and talk about that and you know, that situation and how the business arose. We'll talk about that later on. First of all, what I would like to start with is something actually, rather than going straight in with the company, I would like to talk to you about how you're here today. So you, as Phil mentioned, you started a couple of years ago, but you've really only been in operation as a company since probably mid-2024. And you've then remained in stealth. You've kept quiet. You know, it's a very deliberate decision to do this, which I think is quite different. So tell me a little bit about why you chose that path and what has triggered the decision now to emerge from stealth.
There's a lot of pressure on companies, either investors or so on, that people want to have their name in lights. They want that to that moment. You don't need to rush that. I think if you're working in a truly disruptive area, something that's completely novel, you've just got to be careful that you go out and start telling people what you're going to do without actually having proof that you can actually deliver it. So the decision to remain in stealth mode was largely down to me thinking that we need to actually pull things together here. We need to deliver certain value inflection points so that when people do engage with us, and obviously we came out of stealth officially sort of last week with press releases and such, and we've seen a lot of people get in touch. Certainly I've been inundated with people establishing contact, and it just when you have conversations with people, it's a lot stronger if you talk to people with something to say, that you've now got programs that you've taken to in vivo efficacy. You've now built a solid team. You're now in full production mode. You're delivering chemistry at a standard that's high enough to compete with a synthetic chemistry lab, and that's not down to me, that's down to the team. I think the team has really come together and we've really delivered on that. But the whole decision was essentially just to take the pressure off. You don't want to start a company where there's so much noise around you and all of a sudden people are focusing that noise on you. So if you can just take that pressure off yourself and the team, especially HotHouse, because it was a spin out of academia, the majority of the team hadn't worked in industry before, so protecting them from the noise was useful. Just get us to focus on what we do, nail down what we do, and actually understand what we do ourselves before we actually deploy that to deliver something.
Did it hinder finding talent if there wasn't that kind of public momentum behind and hype behind the company?
There is the downside of hiring people, not particularly for this company, but certainly other experiences I've got when you're in stealth mode. People, have to do the diligence on the viability of the company and such. So for this is quite a niche area. So we could talk to people about the company and they got the message. I think investors and talking to incoming talent is definitely one of the downsides of it. But I think it's outweighed by the fact that you're actually progressing the projects along, in my mind.
I guess you have to work with quite patient investors then that are kind of willing to stay quiet on their portfolio for a period of time.
Yeah, I think they all bought into the concept. I think because of the novelty of it, we've got a great set of investors, and I think they saw the upside to this. They understood the fact that if we just told everybody what we were going to do because it was so different, then it would put pressure on us, and that might derail conversations. It might derail what we've agreed to do in our first and second year, and so on and so forth. So I think thanks to the investors for going with that particular plan, and I think because of the uptake we've had since we came out of stealth mode, it's actually been worth it. I think it was the right decision to make. Of course, you can't compare it because you've got nothing to compare it to. But from my perspective, we've done what we wanted to do, and we're now in a better position.
So you correctly said we haven't actually talked about what you do yet. So let's move on and talk about the company and the product and the technology. I mean, we are a tech podcast. We like to get into the detail of things, but this is complex stuff. So walk us through it step by step.
So we, in essence, use AI and plants to make small molecule therapeutics. We do that by understanding and finding the the tools that nature has evolved in plants to make small molecules, because plants can't move, so they have to essentially use chemical warfare to do all of their work for them. If an animal starts eating them, they have to then fight that with chemical warfare in order to stop the animal from eating it, because otherwise it would kill the plant, because the plant can't walk away like another animal could. Because of this, they've developed all these tools over millions of years to make small molecules, and those small molecules have been kind of honed to interact with nature. So to get a small molecule into the body is quite a lot of work because it needs to have certain properties. But plants have evolved this over millions of years. So a lot of that legwork has been done by the plant already. So they make molecules that can interact with living things. And what we do is we use AI to discover those tools, and we can then hijack this system, and we can combine all these tools from different species of plants, and we can then make new molecules that have therapeutic purposes, because the plant isn't making it to cure some human disease, it's making it for another purpose. But if we can understand the tools that nature has, then we can repurpose it to cure human disease, because a lot of the legwork has been done by the plant already.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yes, it's well described. And I guess that now helps spotlight taking that time in stealth to get something. So where are you in that process? Are you at that point now where you've got proof of concept?
The main program that we're running is a vaccine adjuvant project, largely driven from the work that was performed in Professor Anne Osborne's lab prior to Spinout. She and her group pioneered or discovered the biosynthetic route to a compound called QS21, which is an extract from a tree called Quiaja saponaria that grows in central Chile. The bark of that tree is stripped, the compound is removed, and then we use that in various vaccines. So we can go into more detail about adjuvants and such in due course, but I think that set the tone for the company. That was a pretty obvious. There's two things that you need to build in a company from the get-go. One is choose the right project to start with. That's critical. And the second thing is build a team that can actually deliver, a foundational team that you can build upon. If you get any of those two incorrect, it's a bit of a challenge. So we've basically built the first program around where the guys had experience in the past, and that's why we're delivering chemistry in that space to try and unlock novel and next generation vaccine adjuvants that should provide better products for low to middle income countries.
So you're using the AI for the discovery piece, but does it also, are you using the AI for the viability piece as well, in terms of which are the best candidates to kind of back?
Our platform can access about 20 million molecules, but we need AI to tell us which ones to make, because it would take a lifetime to make all of them and test all of them for every single human disease. But we use AI to tell us exactly which ones and pinpoint the chemistry that we need to focus on for the various projects. So for our first project, that is the vaccine adjuvants, and we have models that can predict vaccine adjuvancy, that will predict how well the molecule will behave as an adjuvant in a vaccine. And that helps guide us to which molecules we need to be making, because we can't make all 20 million in the lab and test them all. Sure. But if we can kind of get that down to a list of 30, then we can start actually making them.
So how did you go about training that AI then, if this hasn't been done before?
There's lots of public data available on kind of bioactivities, and there are lots around cytokines, which are things in the body that cells release to stimulate the immune system. And they perform other roles as well, but largely to stimulate the immune system. And when you have a vaccine, you need to stimulate the immune system alongside whatever is you're trying to gain immunity from. So say if it's a flu vaccine, you have the flu antigen, and you also have this kind of helper molecule, an adjuvant that will boost the immune system. And you need particular properties and you need particular bioactivity for that adjuvant, so that you know if it's going to stimulate the immune system. And there's lots of data out there on trying to find molecules that will do that, largely from an anti-inflammatory perspective, but it's just the reverse readout of the assay. So you can take that and then you can train a model to predict whether it will release the right cytokines, and that will tell you whether it's going to be a good adjuvant.
And you asked, what is success? How successful have we been? So we've generated several iterations of compounds now. So we're now generating compounds on a bi-monthly basis. They get sent to a CRO for assessment. So there's a tick in the box of actually delivering the chemistry and making sure that we've got a constant supply of chemistry. That's one thing. But importantly, our compounds are actually showing in vivo responses in our animal models. So the data that we've got to generate is not just a sort of biochemical data and then sort of moving it through. For us to really disrupt the vaccine industry, we need to generate antibody data from in-life models. And we're actually showing that our compounds are delivering an antibody response to the antigen of choice for the assays that we're using. So in that sense, the chemistry is delivering what we had intended it to do.
So we talked about the AI's impact around the actual molecule side of things, but what about picking what species of plants to go for? How have you approached that? An addressable market, if that's the right term?
Yeah, so there's lots of plant species that make a particular kind of molecule called a saponin that is kind of largely used historically as a shampoo or to kind of wash the body in a shower or something. And somebody in the 1920s, a French researcher, was looking at ways to boost vaccines to get them to become more effective. And he found that anything that was a very, very slight irritant really helped because it was essentially stimulating that immune response. So he threw in everything he could get his hands on when he was testing this, one of which was an extract of a tree from Chile that contains QS21 that we've discussed. And that worked, and that stimulated the immune response. And he achieved a much better vaccine on the back of that. And there's lots of species of plants that make saponins, very similar molecules. So we kind of know from that which species we need to focus on. There are 400,000 species of plant on the planet, and they have about 30,000 genes. About 20% of those are involved in making molecules, which is about 2.4 billion genes that we could potentially discover to make small molecules. So we also need the AI to help us on that, to discover which genes are actually involved in making saponins inside of the plant species that we're interested in. So that's what we have. We kind of have a two-pronged approach to our AI. One is on discovering the genes from the species to tell us these ones will make the molecules you're interested, and then ones that tell us, and these are how you should combine them to make these particular molecules, because the AI thinks these will be better adjuvants than other ones. And so far, that has worked out very well. And we have had very good data coming back about the molecules that we're making.
So I think we're starting to unpick things here, but I've got a question. So what came first? Was it, or what was the natural order? Was it a desire to build more sustainable drug discovery processes, systems, all of that kind of stuff? Was it the AI that you'd kind of developed over time that you wanted to plug in there? Was it Anne's research, or was it just a medley of all of those things?
Sort of a medley. So Anne was always interested in using plants and hijacking plants to make small molecules. She spent decades researching this and finding genes that are involved in making small molecules, and then how can you kind of hijack that system to make new ones. She was always interested in that. I then joined the group in 2020, and that was the first time the group then had kind of AI capabilities coming in and being able to build systems that will make that process a lot more efficient. And out of that came the idea of we could make a company here, and we have a first project identified already because of the work that Anne has been doing. If you sprinkle a bit of AI in there, then we can make this way more efficient, and we can find genes quicker, we can identify molecules quicker, and that's really where the idea for the company came from.
So that idea of sustainable drug discovery makes, perfect sense. How would you describe the current landscape then? Is pharma calling out to industry to solve those challenges? Are you having to educate pharma to change? What's the dynamic there?
I don't think pharma specifically are calling out for change themselves. I think we all recognise, I think other people are, and there's pressure on us all to try and deliver more sustainable, more green solutions to problems that at this point require tweaking. I think you know there's wish lists where people will say, well, we wish we could do things a lot better, a lot greener, a lot quicker, a lot more sustainable. But until that solution is actually in place, then we'd all like to have a flying car, but we haven't invented one of them yet. So we'll have to wait until it comes along. As soon as one of them does come along, then people, I'm sure, will get on board with it. So I think where we partition ourselves, if you like, is that the main bulk of our process obviously involves plants. Plants is core to what we actually do. So rather than working in a medicinal chemistry, synthetic chemistry lab where there's a lot of reagents and catalysts and all manner of things knocking around in the lab, nasty chemicals that you can't pour down the sink, it's just air and water that our plants and sunlight, of course. That's how they survive, and that's how they generate the chemistry that we generate. So you plug in the AI at the start to say, okay, these are the compounds we want to make because of a certain target product profile that's presented to us. Then we have a look at the chemistry that we can make, and we identify the chemistry that we should make for that specific project. There's various efficiencies that we've got as well, so we can highlight compounds that are easier to make than other compounds. It's no different to what you would do in a normal chemical lab. You want to focus on the chemistry you can get to quickly to get some SAR in place, and then you build your SAR and you start to generate better compounds. But once the AI system identifies those compounds, it provides, if you like, a recipe to the guys in the lab that they will then prepare the genes. We will infiltrate the plants with those genes. The plants will then grow. We'll then remove the leaves after a period of time, crush the leaves down and purify them and deliver the chemistry. So that itself lends itself to a very sort of ecological process. Yeah. We do have labs. We obviously still have to work in labs, but the main bulk of what we do is plant-based and allowing plants to grow. And one of the things we'd like to see is, you know, a shift towards this approach. We probably are pioneering it, so we have to be the ones that have to carry the banner. But hopefully what we've delivered thus far and what we're going to deliver in the next couple of years will change people's opinion on that. And then we will be able to provide sustainable solutions where we'll essentially be growing drugs on trees.
There's a great strapline.
Yeah, but that's the whole point, is that if we can generate a plant or a plant system that will enable us to just extract high value therapeutics that will be curing some of the worst incurable diseases with high patient need, that's what we want to do, and that's what we think we can do.
Technology moves fast, and now so can you. Discover Polestar, the all-electric performance brand vehicles redefining how we drive. Precision engineering, minimalist design, and software that evolves with you. Experience it at Holden Group in Norwich and Bury St Edmunds, or let us bring the test drive to your door. Proud sponsors of the Cambridge Tech Podcast. Polestar, electric performance redefined. Discover at holdengroup.co.uk/Polestar.
Clearly, you've got this ability to find and discover novel compounds, which is groundbreaking. You've got the kind of the credentials around the sustainability piece, but you've got that burden of being, you know, first to market, being a pioneer. So you've got that burden of education. You know, are there some, I guess, more traditional benefits? You know, by using your technology, does this speed up time to market for pharma companies? Does this reduce the cost of R&D around new treatments and drugs?
I think there's a lot of investment that goes into chemistry generally. So we're no different from other companies. Sort of, we are a chemistry delivery company. It's just we do it with plants. We don't use laboratories, and we use greenhouses, if you like. And the reason that just generally people want to increase the amount of chemistry that they can do, novel synthesis and so on and so forth, is because they want to open up areas of chemical space. Those areas of chemical space can then be deployed against certain diseases. So you work on a therapeutic program, you reach a certain point, you can't break through because you can't find the compound with the right balance of ADME properties and all the properties required to deliver a drug. So the project stops. But we generate new chemistry so we can break through those walls. What we are doing is totally different in terms of the area of chemical space that we're going into. I mean, these compounds are just totally different to what you would make in a lab. I would challenge synthetic chemists to make the kind of compounds that we are making. They probably could if they spent years making a single compound, but it's just not economically viable for somebody to compete in this sense. So you get a plant to do it. And we can do this routinely and generate a whole lot of diversity in that sense. So the main hope here is the same hope as to why people invest in chemistry generally, is that there's a lot of low-hanging fruit out there. And if you can access an area of chemical space, a new area, then that chemical space could be perfectly aligned to then deliver a cure for, until now, incurable disease. So that's part of the process. That's what we're trying to do, is to deliver that novel chemistry so that we can find these areas where we know that the chemistry will work. Phil's built a great platform that enables us to mine patents in terms of what other people have done in the past. We've pulled all the exemplified compounds in, so we can align our chemical universe on top of what other people have done. And we can see where people have got to certain stages, and you can align certain layers on top, clinical trial data and all this kind of thing, to work out if people have actually delivered something from the project, or maybe the project stalled, maybe they where in the clinic did that actually pause or fail.
So you could actually reach back out and reserrect stalled or failed projects.
Exactly. So that's something that we can do. So we know that there is some high value chemistry out there. In fact, there's two projects that we tend to do. One is a discovery project, which is we don't know what we're looking for, but we do know what the problem is. And that's in the same way you would have for a normal therapeutic program. So we just generate some compounds, some SAR, and we optimize the compounds towards an endpoint. But we've also got production projects where we know what the problem is, but we actually know what the compound is that people want. But the issue is that people can't get access to that compound because they'd have to go through natural extraction methods, going to plants and extracting them out. Maybe the plant doesn't make enough of it, but they know it's a really valuable commodity that they would like extracted out, but they just can't get enough. So what we can do is we can pre-program our plants to deliver that high-value chemistry and deliver that chemistry from a different plant, but from a sustainable plant as well, if there's sustainability pressures on that original source. So there's two kind of models we're going for. In the short term, I guess the production type projects and accessing some of our adjuvants. So we offer our adjuvants as more of a panel. So if people want to come to us and they've got a vaccine that they would like to preclinically appraise their particular vaccine or their antigen, then they can access our panel via a fee, and then they can see whether ours stack up or don't against the standard of care. And if they do, they can come back to us and we can do another project for them. We can either discover more, or they can access the compound itself. They can license it from us and this kind of thing. So there's various models that we're looking at here, but certainly early revenue is something that we're aiming for from what we're trying to do.
Those models are interesting in terms of how people can come and approach you and have the conversations with you. But do you think that a lot of the conversation has been around sustainability, cost, availability, those types of things? Are they a driver as well, or is it literally we just need a compound and therefore you're going to give us a slightly different option? Yeah, I'm trying to get to, yeah. Do you think that people will go, we like this idea because actually it's much more sustainable, we're using the history of plants?
I think I'd have to go for it. It's driven by the product first, generally. Generally, it is, look, if you guys produce something that's really good, we'll look at it. Nobody would start a conversation with, you've got a really great sustainable product here, now let's see if it works. I think it's an added advantage if there's a sustainability tick in that particular box. So I think it's down to us to actually, which again goes back to the stealth mode part, is showcase that we can actually deliver value, and then the sustainability angle, the sort of greener biotech angle then comes to the fore, because actually we can deliver things that work, but we can deliver a sustainable solution there. So hopefully people will get behind that. But I think generally it is, realistically, it's not the sustainability that drives the engagement. It's the fact that we're generating a product that people would like.
And is anyone else doing anything similar to what you're doing?
There's other companies who are mining what nature has already produced. So they'll screen species of plants and they'll discover what molecules are in there, and then can they use any of those for therapeutic purposes. Often that leads to failure to get to the clinic because you can't modify what the plant is making, which is where kind of our platform kind of takes that to the next level, where we can find the tools that plants have evolved so we can actually change the structure and we can overcome some of these problems. And just going back to kind of our project identification, a lot of the failures that we can identify have failed because of that, because you can't modify a structure and you can't take it from the plant is making it for its purpose to let's use it to cure a human disease. For whatever reason, it fails in the clinic. But if you can modify that structure by changing the tools that you're using, then you might be able to drive that all the way to the clinic. And that's kind of where we're trying to come in and solve that problem.
And can I just ask a clarification question on like the scope of where you sit in the value chain? You kind of had that nice comment about, you know, your greenhouses rather than labs. So are you actually, once you've made the discovery, are you then part of your offer is to grow and to harvest those plants so you can get those molecules, or is that then a synthetic process? That's the bit I'm missing.
Yeah, no. So the sort of right-hand side of the Gantt chart, if you like, which is sort of delivering GMP scale-up and these kind of things, that is something that we will likely have to take on ourselves, because ultimately what we will aim to deliver is a stable system. So we work in two systems. One's more of a transient system, which is more of a shotgun approach, where we basically just shoot the genes in and then we'll deliver in a very unoptimized sense, but we'll still deliver maybe 3 megs of the compound. And what we do actually is deliver 95% purity. So whilst we are a kind of natural product play, the purity is important to us. And it goes back to the stealth mode and everything like this. We have to be competitive with a synthetic chemistry lab, but in a totally new area of chemical space. So what we deliver is a stable system at the end of it. So a reproducible system, essentially, if you like, seeds that you could then grow a plant, and within that plant there is the same amount of compound per plant. So if you want 10 kilos, you just do the maths for I get X per plant, so I just do the maths, and that's how many plants I actually need. Then we'll be looking at vertical farming type approaches. So these, we're not talking about big scale up factories with smoke puffing out of chimneys and such. We're talking about large buildings where you've got layers and layers of plants that will constantly be growing and then extracted and grown and extracted. So again, still along the lines of the sustainability, still along the lines that the plants are core to what we actually do.
And that was the reason for the question. You've got to have quite a diverse set of skills within this company then, because you're...
Yeah. There's no point us producing 3 megs of a compound if ultimately we don't have the ability to deliver essentially up to sort of clinical trial.
And you can outsource the production of those plants to someone else?
The actual production, once we get to a more stable system, we could outsource that.
Okay.
Right. But what would be nice to see is so the UK government getting behind this kind of thing and really promoting plant science in the UK. So I know we're working at the John Innes Centre, or we're incubated at the John Innes Centre right now, and it's such a fantastic, vibrant place for plant bioscience. And if we could get some investment into Norwich or the ecosystem around there to really support the growth, this could be a really big UK opportunity.
There's an opportunity for the UK to be a global leader.
Absolutely, if it's not already.
And there is some precedence for this kind of technology. So there are companies in America using plants to produce proteins instead of small molecules. And they had these huge greenhouses. They were doing kind of 10,000 plants a day. They were turning over. And they actually had approval for COVID vaccines. The company went out of business for various reasons. But that kind of the proof of concept of using this technology in plants to get them to produce a product has already been done. But we're now coming along getting them to make small molecules rather than proteins, which hasn't been done before. So it's kind of the same technology, but with a different purpose. And yeah, if we could establish kind of growth facilities in Norwich, or at least in the UK, then we could scale this and we could then produce enough to provide vaccines for the third world.
We wouldn't have to then go abroad for the production.
I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. I want to pick up on Norwich. So you've just talked about the John Innes Centre. What's the support been like over in Norwich?
It's been super. It's been great. Obviously, I came in when the company started in July 2024, but I know before that there's been a lot of support as the company was spinning out. In terms of just sort of entrepreneurial support, Anglia Innovation Partnership, AIP, on Norwich Research Park, they've been very supportive. So Phil and another member of the team frequently attend events there, which are more towards entrepreneurial type things. So they'll have speakers coming in and that sort of thing. But also in terms of scalability of labs, as we build, as we grow, we're going to be looking for our own labs in that kind of space. So what I can't do is move the company out of Norwich, because it makes no sense. All the skills are there. That's where everybody lives. So we're going to be there. Our labs are going to be positioned there. So getting that support, John Innes Centre as well, supporting us in that sense, enabling us to have people working in the labs and their access to the facilities. It's just really useful for a startup company to have the support of these groups, because it just reduces the burden on the cash runway, really, because you don't have to have all the kit, and you can share these sorts of things.
Yeah, and there's lots of other startups on the research park as well. So you can kind of develop a network of other founders, and you can talk about issues that you've had, and it's a very kind of vibrant place to start a company. I know this is the Cambridge podcast, but
we've been to Norwich many times.
Is an excellent place to create a company, and I would recommend it to anyone.
Couple of questions then. So how big is the team now, and what does that growth plan look like? And you kind of touched on the skills are in Norwich. So is the plan to co-locate everyone in the same place? Would you kind of have remote teams as you scale, just find the talent where the talent is, kind of thing? Or what's your approach to that side of things?
Yeah, so we've got very ambitious plans. So the plan is that we will be starting to raise for the next phase of the company in January. If not, I've started already, to be honest. So we are very ambitious in terms of what we want to raise. The primary objective is to have the staff to now make sure, now we understand what we've got to do. Now we understand where the problems are and where we feel we should be deploying FTEs. So it's to build a group that will be dedicated to enhancement of the platform. So since the company started, we've more than halved the timelines for purification. The timelines at the start were long, to say the least. And since we've now brought the right people into the company, those timelines have dramatically reduced. I was talking to an investor last week, and they were vastly impressed by the timelines that we actually got the compound out the door. Bear in mind, there is a certain period of time you need to grow a plant as part of our process. So making sure we've got resource dedicated to that to increase our efficiency, because efficiency is always going to drive the compounds out the door. We also want to move towards therapeutic programs. We'll carry on working in vaccine adjuvants, certainly for 12 months post-investment, and then we'll make a call on, okay, is this something that's going great? Do we continue, or do we just pivot more towards a second therapeutic program? So what we're aiming for is to build up a biotech with an internal pipeline. We will be driving the company forward to deliver at least in vivo efficacy, maybe a year off candidate selection at the next round. And hopefully a second therapeutic program will deliver in vivo efficacy as well. So we have the knowledge graph that we can investigate to identify programs. We probably need to just spend a bit more time looking at the most recent data that's come out, just to make sure that we're not missing anything. But we can look for neurodegeneration programs, anti-inflammatories, oncology programs, just by searching that particular data set. And the visualization that we've got just tells us where our compounds are in respect to those. So those new programs are probably going to be the most exciting ones, because then it's more sort of traditional drug discovery, something that I've done in the past. And I think we'll build the team accordingly. So you said, how are we going to scale the team? We're currently about 8. So the plan is to move that up to about 20 FTEs.
So how has the team changed from founding until now? And, what does the future growth plan look like?
So the team was founded out of the John Innes Centre, out of Anne Osborne's lab. Anne is a phenomenal scientist. She has won multiple awards from kind of the Royal Society and the Novozymes Award. She has an OBE. She was recently cited as the top 1% cited author in the world. So it's a great place and lab on which to build a company, because you have that kind of acknowledgement of this is world-class science coming out of this lab. So the founding team was spun out from her group, and then we've added some more people. So we've brought in some really talented people. We've grown it to about 8 at the moment. And then going forward, we're hoping to build that up to about 20 after the next round of funding, so we can just kind of continue to scale the company and continue to grow it and bring in world-class talent.
And we talked about the kind of diversity of roles and skills that you're going to need as the company grows. So you believe that you'll be able to get everyone into co-located in Norwich to grow that team? Are you going to have remote teams? How does that kind of work?
I think the laboratory team will always be in Norwich. I think there will be certain people that they could work remote. That's absolutely fine. But I think Norwich is where our roots are. So that's where we're going to bring in people to deliver the chemistry. So, Norwich isn't the only centre of excellence for plant bioscience in the UK. There's other universities as well. So I think what we would try to do was have all those co-location in Norwich, or certainly commutable to Norwich.
I'm glad you brought Anne up as well there, because she has put out an awful lot of content over the years in this space. And it kind of led me to another question. It is a complicated area. How much do you think you've got a role within the team to actually be educating the market about this too?
Yeah, anything that's disruptive requires an element of convincing people. Sometimes you get a little bit bruised with the number of people saying no and so on. But again, it goes back to one of the original questions about stealth and such. So we have to deliver to that. I think we have to educate it. If you don't know that there's a sustainable way of doing drug discovery, then you'll just revert to what you've been doing in the past. So we need success to enable people to sit up and say, actually, this does work. We need investment to come in so that people can see that as well. We need investors behind us to say, we're behind this, we like this. Not only the sustainability angle, but also the fact that we're delivering compounds that are high value and pushing towards the clinic. It's our responsibility, because we're the ones that are really pushing this forward.
It's been fascinating to have the conversations with you today. I think it's an exciting period of time. As you said, you're open for funding. You're expanding the portfolio. Yep. And there was also a little bit of a nudge there for government to actually do a little bit of investment in plant bioscience, which I think is great. So thank you very much for your time today. And we'll come back on. Tell us your funding news when it comes in.
We will do. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Today's show was produced by Carl Homer of Cambridge TV and supported by our media partner, Business Weekly. The Cambridge Tech Podcast is available on all major podcast platforms and on cambridgetechpodcast.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please give it a 5-star review. It'll really help others discover the show.
Now you can get directly involved with the show. Leave us up to 60 seconds of audio by visiting cambridgetechpodcast.com on your computer or phone and click Call the Show from the menu. Send us your news items, events to promote, leave us feedback or suggest a guest.